Middle East is characterized by a high-stakes escalate to negotiate strategy led by President Donald Trump. While the U.S. and Israel have been engaged in a 25-day or so military campaign against Iran, Operation Epic Fury, the situation has recently shifted toward a fragile diplomatic window. President Trump has publicly claimed that very good and productive talks are underway to reach a complete and total resolution, even as Iranian officials publicly deny direct negotiations, and Israel continues its military strikes. What does published reported evidence suggest? Diplomacy or conflict? The evidence suggests a dual-track reality where public denials from Tehran contrast with reported back-channel activity. What is the diplomatic track? President Trump announced a 5-day pause in planned strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure on March 23, 2026, to allow for negotiations mediated by Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. Reports indicate messages are being exchanged through intermediaries to avoid strikes on critical energy sites. What is the military reality? Despite talk of peace, the Israeli military remains at war, period, according to Energy Minister Eli Cohen. Israel is reportedly seeking several more weeks to complete its objectives, which include dismantling Iran's missile infrastructure and nuclear program. What is Iran's stance? Officially, Iran's security chief Ali Larijani has stated there are no plans to engage in negotiations with the United States. However, some Iranian officials concede that messages are being exchanged through third parties. The current situation is not a contradiction, but a fulfillment of America First realism. This perspective argues that the 2026 conflict was a necessary correction to decades of failed containment, designed to force a permanent settlement from a position of absolute dominance. Is this the end of forever containment? For years, the U.S. allowed Iran to build a ring of fire around Israel through proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas. Operation Epic Fury, which began on February 28, 2026, and reportedly killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, is viewed by this camp as the definitive dismantling of that axis of resistance. Moderates within the movement argue that you cannot negotiate with a regime that feels it has forward deterrence. You must first remove their ability to threaten you before they will talk seriously. Is the U.S. leveraging strategic gains for a better deal? President Trump's current pivot to diplomacy is seen as the art of the deal applied to geopolitics by first demonstrating overwhelming military force, striking nearly 900 targets in the opening hours. The administration has created the leverage necessary to achieve what the 2015 treaty could not totally resolve. Iran's nuclear and ballistic programs are not gone. The view is that Trump doesn't want forever war. He wants a forever peace secured by a deal that favors American and Israeli security interests. What about economic realism and the Strait of Hormuz? The closure of the Strait of Hormuz on March 2, 2026 spiked oil prices to $126 a barrel, threatening the global economy. Trump's willingness to pause strikes is a pragmatic response to protect the American consumer while keeping the credible threat of military force active. The goal is to reopen the strait not through endless naval patrols, but by forcing a political settlement that makes such asymmetric blackmail impossible in the future. Could this be a case of domestic unity over foreign adventurism? While some isolationist voices, like Megyn Kelly, have criticized the war, the majority of the MAGA movement remains aligned. The moderate MAGA argument is that this is not nation building, which the movement famously opposes, but a surgical high-intensity effort to neutralize Iran for good, so that American troops can eventually leave the region entirely. Summary of what's actually happening. The Middle East today is a laboratory for coercive diplomacy. Israel is pushing for a total strategic victory to ensure its survival for the next 50 years. The Trump administration is using that military pressure as a hammer to forge a new regional security order where Iran is either a neutralized player or a reformed one. Iran is engaging in escalate to de-escalate tactics, striking Gulf infrastructure to pressure the U.S. into a ceasefire, while quietly exploring the terms of surrender or survival through intermediaries in Oman and Pakistan. In short, the U.S., Israel, and Iran are not negotiating in the traditional sense of a friendly summit. They are in the final, most violent stage of a negotiation, where the terms are being written in fire and steel before they ever signed on paper. That's the way it is this 25th day of March, 2026. I'm Joe LaRosie.